Transform your passion of mechanics into an art form by mastering the precision of engine building tools like dial indicators, micrometers, bore gauges, and plasti gauge to craft an engine that runs as smooth as a finely tuned symphony. What is up, you guys, and welcome back to the channel. We're going to start this video off by talking about some of the tools that you're going to need to make any engine, including mine, run at its peak performance. The first precision tool that you will use is plasti gauge. Now, if you're new to building engines and performance altogether, you're probably sitting there wondering, like, Chris, what's plasti gauge? Well, plasti gauge is actually a tool that you use to measure your clearance on rod caps and main bearings to know if your rods are loose, tight, or right where it needs to be, which is exactly what this is a game of tolerance. Your clearances have to match up. If they don't match up, you end up with things like this. When tolerances are off even by 1/1000th of an inch, it will create destruction. Some of the stuff that you guys are really gonna have to pay attention to when it comes down to doing this, especially with plasti gauge, you need to understand what you're doing with it. So with plasti gauge, you can see there's measurements here: 10 thousandths, 15 thou, 20 thou, 30 thou. The higher the number, the looser that your clearance is. So you want anywhere from 20 thousandths to 15 thousandths. So you want a pretty tight tolerance on the rod cap. Main bearings I'll have to check, but for now what we're gonna be doing is checking the rod caps. One of the other things, whenever you're purchasing your rods, almost every single rod company, manufacturer, is gonna give you a list based off what you have. They'll give you a list of what your bolt stretch should be, your torque for each bolt, and the size of the bolt. And obviously the thread size and the material. All right, so we're gonna go ahead, break these loose. This one has seen some heat. This one has seen some serious heat. Okay, so this is number 3. This thing has been getting overheated really bad. Wow. Got the color changing. So that lets you know that there's been a lot of heat, a lot of friction in this area of the cap. All right, so this is how we're gonna do this. I'm gonna go ahead, put some plasti gauge right here, clamp it down with the torque specs that it's supposed to be at, and we're gonna see this side might be too tight. So more than likely what I'm seeing is we're gonna have to turn this crankshaft, turn the journals, and then get it fully balanced, counterweighted, and then we're gonna have to size the rod bearing inserts accordingly to what we get back from the machine shop. Oh, wow. Okay, check out this rod cap insert. It's literally got a piece coming off of it. Well, we just found our spot. The number 3 rod cap was getting ready to let go. Yeah, it must have got caught on the side of the crankshaft right there on the sides of the journal and just started eating it up. Holy crap. Yeah, look at all the heat. So I wonder, once it caught, it must have stayed in place and it was just spinning. The rod cap and the rod was spinning. This was staying stationary. That's what that right there tells me. There's so much heat in this one spot. This is so ate up. I don't even know if I'm gonna get a good reading off of this one. So far, number 3 is definitely where the knock was at. And just stupidity. Oh my gosh. Yeah, see, now this is what it should be looking like. It's still getting a little bit of the coating, but look at how clean everything looks. It's not overheating. So number 3 is definitely my problem. But while we got this apart, let me go ahead and move this plastic gauge over to number 2. Like I said, just for educational purposes, just so you guys know how plastic gauge works and what you're supposed to do with it, which I'll probably get you guys a little bit closer here. Like, come on, I know you want to see, you're at a distance, you can't really tell what's going on. Well, come on over. Make sure everything is dry of any oil, because you want to get a very accurate reading on this. The process for eagle rods, specifically to the KA, is so you can do it with the OEM specifications, which the first time of torquing is 10 to 12 foot-pounds, and then the second time is 37, 38. But for eagle rods, they want you to be torquing them at 75. So I do the first 10, and then I just go straight up to the 75. And then now we'll go ahead and torque this down. Ooh. Now we can go ahead and loosen this back up and see exactly what our clearance is. Let's just hope that we're where we need to be, because this one actually looks pretty good. All right, let's go ahead and get this insert. Looks a little bit closer compared to what we did have. All right, so now I think this is where a lot of people really mess up with plastic gauge. The way that you want to check it is by seeing the thickness. Oh yeah, see, this still isn't good. So between 15 thou and 20 thou is where we want it. Nope, it's like 30 thousandths. Like, this is the bearing from number 2. This is the bearing from number 3. Completely ate up. So number 3 is where I was getting my noise from. And that right there leads to lack of double checking everything. All right, so now that we've got everything tore down out of the block, I do want to go over a little bit of what we're seeing here. So we got cylinder 1, cylinder 2, cylinder 3, and cylinder 4. Cylinder 4, I believe, out of all 4 of them, is probably our best wear. Still not ideal, because you can see how it's just eating up the coating and it's actually getting more into the insert itself. Number 3 was the absolute worst. It actually took a whole chunk out of the side of the insert. It was getting to the point where it was actually delaminating itself. That's where the knock was coming from, which I'll go ahead and flash back that for you guys. Two was okay, 1 was okay. So we did learn about plastic gauge, but I want to go ahead and show you guys the micrometer really quick, the caliper. I actually have a inside-outside caliper, so you can measure, like, say I wanted to measure the inside of the cylinder bore, I could. Now we can go ahead, open it up. 88.42 millimeters. And like I said, the bore is 89, so that's accurate. 88.38, 88.42, 88.42. So the only one that's a little bit out, which isn't really out, is number 3. And then the last thing that I did want to show you guys, which I can't do anything with it right now, but this right here is called a dial indicator. It's a magnetic dial indicator, so you can anything that's metal, you can basically just use that as your clamping area. And then what you do is you place this on the top of the piston right when it touches at top dead center, zero it out, and your movement that you get is your deck height or your compression height, whichever you're checking for. And then you can also check piston to valve clearance and you can also use this for piston to valve clearance. All you have to do is put your probe on top of the retainer, compress down the spring to as much as the cam lobe will push it, and you'll see how much room you have to work your piston to valve clearance. As always, you guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for more content, and have a good day.